if you can look at that pie chart in the middle, there's a lot of activities that are missing 1, 2, or 3 of these features. And that's in the green there. And so a lot of activities that I've seen, reading, writing, listening, speaking, and conversing, have been just kind of pseudo for a lot of kids. So the features are, they build up 1 or more ideas, meaning a concept or a claim. There's just something happening in the mind where they're building something up. It's not just memorizing, right? Now, this could also count as an argument where you're building up 2 ideas. Can everyone do that for me? Everyone do that. Okay, you build up 1 idea as much as possible, and then you build up the other idea as much as possible, and then you weigh them evidence-wise, right? You decide which one is heavier, and that is the argument that wins. It's not just, I'm just going to build up one side and make sure the other side doesn't have time to get built up, right? Or I'm just going to be, that's the biased arguments that you're seeing a lot. We're building up both ideas as objectively as possible, and then we decide. In fact, I even have a mantra: build up both sides before you decide. That's why I have a problem when people say, you just start a conversation that's maybe a collaborative argument, and a person says, well, in my opinion, really, we shouldn't have opinions yet, necessarily. I mean, we might, right? We might have but we shouldn't lay them on the table until we get into the conversation and we build up both sides together. And I hear your evidence and all that, and then we decide. Okay. I don't know if any of you guys do argument types of topics, but that's very important, especially these days, where kids are kind of learning some pretty, I would say, unobjective ways of arguing. There's a change in the brain usually. Something is clear, something is stronger when I build up an idea, or I make a decision. I change my mind. Great. I love it when kids change their minds. That means there's some change in the brain, right? The second feature, in order to build ideas, because building is sort of like a abstract concept, it's you clarify and you support. Those are the 2 big skills that are also conversation skills that I think we should work on. And not just for whatever the topic is, but also for language wise. The more kids are focused on clarifying and supporting terms, or supporting ideas, the more language happens, and the more actually the building of ideas happens, the more learning happens in the brain. And then the third feature, and most are familiar with this, is bridging information gaps, right? Like a jigsaw. I read something, you read something different, we come together and we share, right? The problem with certain jigsaws I've seen, and you might have seen this too, is if you don't have number 1, if kids aren't thinking, I'm going to build up an idea, and you're just doing a jigsaw, filling out the row of a little table, filling out the row of a table doesn't allow for a lot of cognitive processing or even stickage. I don't know if there's retention is probably a better word, but we want things to stick. We want them to process stuff, not just to write down or copy stuff from someone else. We want it to be processed in the idea of building, right? We want them to build up something, a concept. And I'm going to get to some of these ideas in a minute. And it's why language was invented, right? At some point, pointing and grunting wasn't enough. And so words, so let's put some sounds together, make words, and let's put the words together. But they usually did it out of necessity. It wasn't just to show off, right? It wasn't to get points. It was because they needed to get something done in life, right? And that's kind of what we're aiming for, is how do we help kids get something done? And I also include in there, build up ideas or build up arguments. Okay. And then I put a fly here. What was your first impression when you saw a big fly? Fly on the wall. Anybody else?
Smack it.
What? Smack it. Yeah, that's what we want. It's more of the ooh, yuck. Yeah. So the more we let pseudo communication bug us, the better. The more we move stuff in, because authentic communication actually takes a lot of work. It's a lot easier to do pseudo. I'll just tell you right now. You already know that. It's a lot easier to give a bunch of questions. Here's this text. Read the questions, answer the questions, and it'll give you points. That's a lot easier on everybody, right? Than the actual, getting into it. This is messy, hard work, and I think that's where a lot of us are already doing this. But in a lot of cases, we can move kids over to the authentic. And I think I have the pie chart, just looks a little different. There's still green, there's still pseudo, there's just less of it. There's always going to be some pseudo, right? We're never going to be perfect. But if we can, move, more kids more of the time into authentic, that's better, right? So in the chat, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. What would happen? Just pick one and then take it away and think what happens in an activity in kids' minds, or the actual, effectiveness of an activity if it's missing. If it's missing, I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm looking at Melissa right now, and she's my partner. We just read a story in class, or a poem or whatever, and the teacher says, okay, share a summary of the poem with each other. What's missing there? The information gap, right? We both had the same information. Now, if it was like share your impression or your opinion, that might have a little more information gap, but a summary is going to be, fairly similar, too similar. And so am I going to share with Melissa? Like, am I going to work hard to put my summary into words for her? Because she just read it. Not likely. Or vice versa. Is she going to listen very well? And I know Melissa, and I don't know if she's going to listen. If she, so if there's no information gap, where neither of us are going to work hard listening or speaking. We're not going to go the extra mile that we need kids to go. We're not going to say the extra sentence. How many of you in a pair share have seen kids say one word or one sentence, and that's it? It's very common. And some of that is because there's no information gap. Some of it is because they don't have, number one, they're building on, or building up ideas, like a purpose for the pair share. A lot of kids are like, well, in their minds, the pair share is like, okay, teacher just wants to hear me flap my gums for a little bit, and that's it. No, a pair share can be a great opportunity to both help a partner build up an idea and be helped by a partner building up their idea, if we have the right type of setup, right? And I'm seeing a lot of great stuff. Please refer to the chat. I won't read it all, but there's a lot of great stuff in here about when something's missing. All right. Now, this is sort of a mindset slide. It's not growth mindset. This is more idea building mindset. And I would love it. One of my goals, and I think a lot of you guys too, is to have a kid walk into class, or whether it's virtual or otherwise, and say, I'm pushing myself in and pushing my classmates to build up ideas to be as strong and clear as possible. Do you have that? Some kids are just kind of, but I would say, that mentality that this class is going to help me build up ideas. Now, you can also have, I'm going to build up ideas, and language is going to be a result of that. But a lot of kids are not really highly focused on just, linguistics, let's say. And that's why we often have content, right? Some kind of content, some topic of a text that helps motivate kids to, learn language, right? Trying to get some head nods here and there. So you don't have to read the little ideas, but all of us, including kids, have these ideas that are being built up in our minds. We are building up ideas. Sometimes we're forgetting, and they're being broken down. But for the most part, our mind likes to grab on and build up ideas. So for example, if you're reading the text, The Giver, for example, which is, I think, a middle school text, kids can build up an idea based on that text. And they start off with some of the characters and some of the stuff in the text, but then they branch off to, text to self connections and text to world connections. And so all that stuff goes into the building of an idea. And we have to encourage that, because if we don't, if we're just telling kids, you got to memorize ideas of others, they lose interest pretty quickly. But if they take part and they have some agency or ownership in building up their own concepts, claims, ideas, that's why a lot of times arguments are very engaging for them, because they know that there's kind of two sides and they get a choice. and they have to build up one of the sides or the other side, right? But sometimes if you tell them just to learn this or learn that without putting into their own personal touches on it, it's usually less effective. Wind and water change the shape of the land, right? So it's not just the text, it's not just the videos that we're watching, but it's also your own experiences. But getting kids to realize you're building up these ideas as strong and clear as possible. The tests, I still might give a test, but that's secondary. The idea building and whatever type of project that really engages kids in that is primary. And then it's important to be friends with people who are different. This is from a book called Because of Winn-Dixie, if some of you are familiar with that, a great book. And again, it's about, here's a theme that came from the book, but it's not just, you're not building up this theme to write an essay about it, right? It's not just to write an essay for points. It is because this is an important idea for your life, right? This is an important idea that's going to last beyond this month, next month, this year. It could last your whole life. A lot of us have some of these ideas that are still in our heads from, elementary school. They started back then and we just kept on building, right? And then I just have, this is a nice little visual. It's an in-class example, but the next day after I presented in Omaha, a teacher just went and said, I'm going to try this with these these big Lego blocks. And so they each read an article. So that had information gap, right? So they didn't read the same article. And then they decided to co-build up this idea about, I think it's like teenage justice or something like that. I forgot exactly what it was. But they just wrote on the blocks, hopefully it was erasable pen, and started to build it up. It was kind of messy, not perfect, but it was a great model to show this is what we're doing. And there's a lot of stuff that they shared back and forth, because they each had both the article they could use, but also some of their own opinions and ideas. And I've seen teachers use this online as well, where the teacher would listen to a discussion and actually build it on the video right in front of them, just to show it. I haven't seen it with kids actually doing it. Some kids do have these Lego blocks, but I haven't seen that yet. Okay, so for those of you, especially those of you who are teaching right now, write a sentence of an idea that your kids are building or you would like them to build this week, next week, it doesn't matter. Just something, and I always say a sentence, try to make it a sentence, because just a topic or a question isn't where, isn't exactly where we want. A question's okay, but then I would like a one sentence answer, like an essential question, but then the answer is the actual idea. The question isn't the idea. So go ahead, just I'm gonna give you about 30 seconds. See if you can come up with, it doesn't have to be an academic sounding sentence at all, because this would be stuff that kids would be coming up with, right? Humans help cause the extinction of animals, great. Well, it's not great, but it's a great example of an idea. We learn better together. Empathy is a foundational skill. Awesome. One of my tests of an idea is a good idea or an idea worthy of building is, do I want clarification of it? Like, so do I want to, if a kid says any of these things, empathy is a foundational skill for all relationships, then I say, what is empathy? And then they have to define empathy. What do you mean a foundational skill? What does foundational mean? What is a relationship, right? And just that would be the clarify part of that. And there'll be more clarification as I get more information. And then I would say, can you give examples? So that's, remember, the clarify and the support. Clarify and the support are two huge. Oh, I didn't do the hand motions, did I? I'm sorry. So clarify, everyone, I want to see it. I'm looking at a lot of people here. Clarify, say it at the same time. Clarify, and then support. Support. Notice there's not just one piece of support, right? For the tabletop, there's 5, right? It doesn't have to be 5, but there's a lot, right? And so, those two skills, as much as we can weave those into everything we do, and you'll see that a little bit in the next, in the activities we're doing today, as much as we can weave those skills in, that helps kids both build ideas, develop their language, use more language authentically, and it also helps them build relationships as well, right? Okay, seeing some great ideas here. Oh, clarify is like this. Right? So you kind of cover up your face like that, and then you go like that. Clarify. And even just, kids won't do that naturally necessarily during a conversation, but but it's something to help them remember that these are two skills. This is what we do. And it's not just, oh, how many points do I get to clarify once? No, it's like you clarify as much as is needed. And I actually tell people you clarify more than you think is needed. Because a lot of kids will listen to any of these things and they won't ask a clarify question. They'll be in a pair share and a kid will say something like, appearances can be deceiving. And what will the other kid do? I agree. Because they don't have the mindset of what? Building up that idea. It's a great idea. It's a hugely important idea. And so the more they clarify and have this habit, it's kind of a go-to habit of, if I'm in a conversation or a pair share, I'm going to say, oh, well, what do you mean by appearances? And what do you mean they can be deceiving? And then can you give me an example? Can you give me another example? Not just one, right? Kids are like, they'll think, a lot of them will think one example is enough. No, let's have some, and I'll give you an example too, right? So it's really that back and forth. It's a lot messier, but it's powerful. Okay, I'll keep going. Pop quiz. I'm not going to give any points though, because I'm not. Which instructional activities should help motivate and require students to build up ideas to be as strong and clear as possible? Which ones? Ready? How many thought this? Yeah, I mean, and I'm a little bit kind of way on one end of the spectrum, kind of obsessed with this kind of stuff. But if you're not building up ideas, what are you doing with these activities? Right? What are you doing? If you're giving a presentation and you're not helping others build up, you build up your idea first, and then you help others build up that idea in their minds, what are you doing? And so I know I'm kind of, way over on one end of the spectrum on this, but it really works. I mean, I've worked with, quite a few teachers in the last couple of years, and in all grade levels, all content areas. And the more they kind of have this mentality and this kind of extra focus or mindset, the easier it is to get kids to do the kind of that extra sentence or the extra mile, which is really needed. As we all know, a lot of kids need a lot of extra practice in using language, particularly oral language, which is what I tend to focus on. Speaking of that, here's a quick conversation just because it's kind of fun to watch kids talk, right? And I just, this is a conversation. We're going to do structured interaction, or what I also call conversation preparation activities right after this. But I just want you to watch, this teacher had worked quite a bit on clarifying and supporting during the year. This is sort of near the end of the year. And these two boys, especially the first two boys that you're going to see most of, looked at a picture. So it wasn't even a text. I mean, yes, it was a text, but it was a picture of a large fish going after a puffer fish. And the question, what helps a slow puffer fish stay alive? So just look for some of these, clarify, look for support, look for some language advantages of having kids, kind of talk back and forth about the topic. Okay. Let's see if I can get.
Blow it away. It like the blower together and it would die. Yeah, that's it. Well, that's a different idea. Maybe the pufferfish have those waves. Maybe they can pick them like that. Maybe that's like scratching too. Yeah, scratching. Yeah, and talking, and he can swim away. And the puppy is really slow. How is it really fast? That made by those fins. What? Made by those fins. You can drag them really quickly. Yeah, maybe. Yes, maybe. I think we got one idea together is that I feel like when you're like a puppy get big, when you're like a fish, when you have to eat them, and like little strawberry sweets, like slowly, he will eat them, but he can scratch himself and scratch himself inside his body, and he will die, right? Yeah. Ooh, that's a good idea. Yeah. We make one idea. Yeah, okay.
And what did you guys come up with together?
My idea.
And do I just want your idea?
Our idea is that if it pops its claws, if the fish gets to its claws and it pokes him, then he dies.
Is that kind of what you guys came up all together? Amy, it looks like you're right. Can you write that down? Our idea is...
Great. So I'm seeing some great thoughts in the chat. Feel free to add to them in the next moment or two. So and also if you want to share orally, just feel free. I just wanted to share that just to show a couple of the things that can happen when there was an information gap, right? They kind of each had a little different idea. In fact, they ended up kind of co-constructing an idea. Most, the kid on the right kind of did a little more of the work toward the end, right? And then but that kid also, did you notice when he leaned over and said, huh? Sometimes you don't notice that, but that's pretty powerful. A lot of kids don't do that. Why?
Maybe they're ashamed that they don't understand what the other person said.
Exactly. That could be one. Another is they might not care, right? They're just like, I want to get this over with. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like a lot of kids, unfortunately, when it comes to language work or any work actually in school, they think they have to get things done as quickly as possible. And this is now the opposite. When we're talking structured interactions or oral language, whether it's conversation or pair shares or what, we want them to expand it, not reduce it and get done as quickly as possible. And that's what's kind of a change for a lot of kids is they think, oh, well, for years, I've been just getting the answer as quickly as possible and we move on, because we've got to cover a lot of stuff. I know that, right? We know how to cover a lot of stuff when really, the depth and the building up and the use of language, takes time, as we all know, right? We all know that. Okay, and then I like that the focus at the end of that other group where the teacher says, well, is it your idea or is it the whole group? That co-construction of an idea was nice. Okay, so I'm seeing some great stuff. I can't read it all because we got to get on to our activity. Our first activity. This is not an activity. This is just an idea building graphic organizer that you can use throughout the whole unit, throughout the whole year. Kids could have a whole notebook of these ideas that they're building. Right? And you can have them partially built and they might end up being partially built by the end of the year. Big deal. That's life, right? It's not like we're going to build up every idea completely and then get our points for it and then flush it down the toilet, right? This is about, kind of this ongoing, somewhat messy construction of meaning in life. And you could do this for pre-conversation, fill out some things, you read a text or you watch a video and you say, okay, I want to put this stuff into my idea. And then you share with a partner and that partner had some different ideas and you realize, you know what, I kind of like that idea. I'm not going to use that idea, but I'm going to use the second idea and the third, whatever, right? There's that negotiation that can go on when kids are co-constructing their ideas. Notice there's a lot of stuff down below, right? You can use. It's not like I'm just telling you have to clarify and you have to support. Could be a visual, could be notes, could be quotations, could be anything you want that helps you build up that idea. And then it's important, like I said before, they're different for each student. Okay, so this first activity, I'm going to show you 2 videos. It'll take a little bit of time, but it's kind of fun again to watch the videos. These are in class, right? I did have an okay one done remotely, but I'd rather spend the time on showing the 2 in-class ones that I have. And this was a practice session, the second time the kids had ever done it. And so the first time was with the whole class there. It's a very loud class. So this is recess. And basically just watch what the director on the left-hand side just kind of says pro and con back and forth. And the girl on the right says the pros and the cons of an issue. In this case, it's ice cream, just as like an easy topic to start with, just to get the routine down. But just know, I want you to look for, and I don't know if I have it on here. If you want to enter pros, enter some of the positives of this activity potentially for your students, feel free. Okay. My arrow disappears sometimes.
Pro. Ice cream is good because it comes in so much different flavors. For example, rounded necklace, rocky road, chocolate chip, and there's just so much good flavors. On the other hand, ice cream is not very good because it can give you cavities, and it's just not very good because it can give you a brain freeze if you eat it too fast.
Pro.
Ice cream is good because it is very good and it's delicious, and it's just like the perfect thing on a summer day, and it cools you down. On the other hand, ice cream isn't good because in summer when you have ice cream, it melts and it gets all over your shirt, and it just gives you too many cavities.
So you don't have to enter the pauses right now. I'm just want to emphasize. I saw it's kind of like I saw a chat. It's fun, like a game show. What's nice about it is it allows. Let's say the girl on the right's very shy, doesn't talk much. This is a way to structure. It's structured. It's her turn to talk. It's the other turn who might be very verbose. It's her turn to listen, right? So that structure is there, and it's also somewhat safe. It's only in pairs. The kids know the structure, right? And it's a chance for her to now. And if they need a little extra scaffolding, a poster on the wall with pros and cons on it, but very limited, not full sentences by any means. So they have to put words, ideas into sentences. The other thing that's very important in this activity, ideally, especially as they get a little bit more proficient, is keeping it into paragraph, keeping each pro as kind of a topic in and of itself, meaning that you don't want to just jump to the list of, oh, here's a pro and here's a pro and here's another pro and here's a pro. Suddenly the game, the activity's over, and you don't have any, because you do go back and forth from pro, con, pro, con, pro, con. All right. I am going to show this high school version. This is done in New York City. So I just wanted to show you guys that one because they're near you. And the girl on the right is using her notes. It's a little more academic than ice cream. She's looking at the pros and cons of communism in preparation for reading Animal Farm. So they had taken some notes. Notice how she uses the notes and decide whether you like the way she uses the notes or not in the activity. Okay. Also, part of the activity is using however, and then again, and on the other hand, and if you don't use it, the director tells you to use it. That's just part of the activity. So don't think that the girl on the left is getting on the girl on the right for not using it. That's just part of the activity. Okay. And she expects it. All right.
So now you're going to switch roles. So now the director becomes the speaker becomes the director. Okay, 2 minutes.
Okay, so what are the pros and cons of communism?
So the communism pros is originally citizens can come extra based on their own talents and gifts. So the government can give give them a gift for their own talents, and on the other hand,
I have to say con, and then
Yeah.
you have to okay, so con.
on the other hand, people are not free to pursue their own interest.
Oh yeah, that's what I said about con as well.
Yeah, because if look, everyone has no talent. Like if you have a singing talent, I have dancing talent, right? If they give you the gift of singing, if they don't give me dancing talent, I feel bad. So it's not equal.
Yeah, it's not equal opportunity. So pro.
So prawn is which reinforce to idea of true human.
Make sure you use the transitions.
Okay. So then again, no rule is greater than another, which reinforce the idea of true human equality. No rules, like if you don't have your own rules, government give you a rule for the idea of true human equality. So you all have the human equality. However, if you don't agree with the direction of society, you could be impressed or worse. If you don't agree with any rules of government, like school rule, you don't agree with the cell phone, right? So they're gonna give you suspense, or they gonna call your parents. So it's
Take
bad.
around 10 seconds to tell your partner. Now the director, we were just listening to the speaker. Tell the speaker if they were leaning more towards pro or more towards con. Okay?
Okay, so I think that you were more against pro. Basically, you seem to like communism. Is that right?
Yeah.
We haven't really worked on that last part, but the last part's nice because it does force the listener to listen. So, the listener would have to say, I think you leaned on the side of pro, and here's why, right? And so there's a lot of ways to get that listening going. There's also, did you like the way she used the notes? Yeah, I see some thumbs up, thumbs okay. Most people like it, and I don't mind it because she's actually talking about some pretty academic stuff, and then she does look up and explain it. That's the big kicker for me. I don't want her to just read notes, right? Nobody does. But if she does use her notes and then look up and kind of either explain it or qualify it, she also supported her ideas with some examples, and a little more of, authentic talk, not just the note reading. That's fine, right? In fact, that's one thing we do want kids to do, is to go from notes that are not that easy to understand, but then explain them and think about them and put them into words. So I think pretty effective. I also saw a nice question from Anne, and she said, how does it build language? Well, I mean, there's various ways of building language here. One is the input from the partner, which you didn't hear, right? You didn't hear the partner saying her pros and cons. You also get just practice using output of putting your ideas into words. And then there's also, the transitions are there, but also the sentence frames that are also optional that you're going to see in a minute. In fact, right now. So here's the screen that I typically use, and you'll get a copy of this PowerPoint, and I'm going to send a link to some of these videos if you want them. But here's a screen that I tend to use. Notice the transitions here in the middle are not optional. And I want the director to say pro, or con, whatever, with the hand motion. And I want the responder, the talker, to also use that plus the however on the other hand, or then again. So this will be when you're doing this in about a minute, you'll be doing this as well. Okay, so the hand motions are important. And then let's see. And then also down here, notice the yellow poster here. I'm going to want you as a listener, every time you listen, it doesn't have to be every turn, but if you're a listener, ask at least one clarify question and ask at least one support question during the time you are listening, not each turn. But so try to ask at least one of those questions. I would like both. But this is a way that, and one of the problems with teachers is you tend to be verbose and you don't need a lot of prompting for clarifying and supporting, right? Verbose in a good way. I mean, so what you can do is actually every once in a while, just act like a kid and say one sentence, right? Because a kid will say, a con is mosquitoes. And then just wait for the pro, right? That's what a kid will do. Oh, let's get this done as quickly as possible. I'll say one. No. And so the mindset, and of course the classroom culture has to be, well, the listeners say, well, tell me about why mosquitoes are a con, right? And then that gets me talking more, because we have to get each other to talk more. That's what in our classroom, we have to tell kids, we're getting each other to talk, and we're going to ask clarifying support questions all year and maybe your whole life. Right? Think about, the clarifying support questions are valuable anywhere, in any grade level, any content area, any walk of life, any job, right? They're very useful. Okay. And then if you run out of ideas, the director can offer an idea seed by saying, what about, what about getting all dirty and not being able to take a shower when you're out camping? I mean, there's all kinds of things. And then the responder would then elaborate on, oh yeah, I really don't like getting dirty when I'm camping or whatever. Okay, so what you're going to do, you probably won't have time. We'll give you about maybe about 4 minutes to do this activity. You won't have time to switch roles. So quickly decide when you're in your pair, just say, okay, I'd like to be the talker, or I'd like to be or what do you want to be, whatever. Decide on the role, talker or director, and then the talker then decides on the topic. So here we have the directions, the topics are on the right. You can go to the resource doc and then pick a two-sided topic. It can come from this list, or it could be anything else. Doesn't matter. If you want to get political, go for it. I don't care. Say the topic. The director says the topic and then says pro. And then, ideally stick to one pro, right? Says a pro and elaborates on it, kind of like a paragraph. I know we're not going to get that out of a lot of kids right away. Even if you say a second sentence, like if a kid says a second sentence related, that usually that second sentence will be a clarify or a support sentence, usually. And then the director asks any clarify or support questions, especially if the talker says very little. And then the director says con, and the talker says, however, on the other hand, or then again, use the hand motions. All right, I think that's it. And then you repeat the steps as much as you can. At the very end, we might warn you with 30 seconds left for the director to say, and I think you leaned on the side of pro or con because. So try to get that in before you get back to the main group. All right, everybody ready? Okay. So just, dump us into pairs. That'd be great. And see what you can do. Looks like we have a few people left here, which is okay. Even if 2 people end up here, Monica, that's okay. So these other 3 people, Monica, I'm happy to help them if they might not be at the computer though. Mary, Olga, Linda, you guys there? Monica, are you there? All right, for those of you who are back, I don't remember the actual number of participants, but I think slowly you'll be filtering back. How'd it go? You share in the chat if you want, or I'd love to have at least one person be talking, just for about a minute. We don't have a lot of time, but how'd it go? Like for your kids, how could you see the advantage of it being for your kids?
I think it was fairly challenging. It was an easy topic. I chose cell phones, but to have to think of something on the spot, I don't know, productive. It was a productive pressure, certainly. And I could see how my students would need some support to be able to do both sides of the pro and con.
Yeah, and that's why if you want a little T-chart, that's fine, right? So if there's anything you want to do beforehand, often you will have read something, maybe looked, it's not just completely new, right? If you want to practice with ice cream and stuff like that, right? These are sort of practice topics for us, but for your kids, yeah, there's going to be some preparation involved, right? How did it go kind of sticking to the topic or asking clarifying support questions? Did everyone do that?
Yeah.
Good.
May I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was engaging, and I was thinking of my newer speakers, my less developed speakers of English, and how obviously as BICS is generated more quickly and they're able to articulate social topics, a topic that we pick might, as I said, when you were in our room, engage them and excite them again, and to really start with something that's within their ability to discuss, where they have enough vernacular, enough vocabulary to do it, and then inch over and move towards the content area. It's a good continuum of experience.
Exactly. I'm going to try to get to our next activity. I know there's only 5 minutes. We can do it. I'm just going to whip through really quickly. I would have done this normally with English, TESOL folks. I do this in Italian, but because of time, we didn't, because it takes a little longer to set you up for that. But here is some of remember the T-chart, positives and negatives, T-chart with pictures. And I would go through the language and we'd act out some of these words. So that's what we would normally do, a little more time, and it even works better live, but I've done it online as well. Also, you can do similar different. So another skill is, comparing and contrasting. In this case, I think the teacher had them do new Brian and old Brian in a novel, right, in a story. And so like how the character changed. The character was like this, and then by the end of the story was like this. And so you just go, similar, different. Old Brian and new Brian, or two characters in a story, similar, go. And then they have to say, well, both new and old Brian, blah, 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 comma. Look at the sentence frames down there. Those are a little more complex grammar than what most kids and even adults use. And so it's a nice way to get kids to use a little more, more complex sentences orally, because they're doing it with one other person. They're not like stressed out, oh, the teacher's going to get mad and correct me. It's just a way to kind of comfortably, get them to use that language. And then these slides will be available, but these are some, for kids at more beginning levels. Here are some modifications that some of you have already been thinking about as we were doing the activity. We did a little bit of it, practicing in L1 beforehand, if possible, right? So there's different things that you can do to help set them up for success. This activity, because we're running out of time, I apologize, but I'll show it to you. And then, and because it does take a little while, I'll show it to you. This is what you would do. You would go to the resource doc, and you could do that right now if you wanted to. And then you would decide which is A and which is B. Now you guys have probably done A/B activities quite a bit anyway, so this is not new to you. And then you would click on A to see your card, and the other person would click on B. So you're not seeing both cards, right? I actually have the activity is actually 4 cards if you want to download it from our website. And 4 cards is really nice, especially in a classroom setting, because you just have groups of 4 and they get to have 3 pair shares in a row. So they get a lot better at describing their animal. So they become this animal in the first person. So you would become an okapi, you would become a kangaroo rat, and you would talk about your adaptations in the first person. And you would even embellish it a little bit, right? If you want. And then you ask the questions on the right. So it's more of an interview protocol. It's just, these are the questions. Notice there's some sentence frames that are somewhat complex. Like here's, because I eat bark, I have adapted, my teeth have become, flat or sharp or whatever it is. One trait that helps me avoid dangers is, and so there's these nice kind of, sentence starters, but they're very in context and they're very authentic, right? It's not like, okay, we're learning how to, do a independent, dependent clause and here do 10 sentences, right? It's not that. They're actually using it and be, in a more of a kind of a dramatic way because they become this animal. In the classroom, I've even seen, kids like swim around like a whale, like the whale does to blow bubbles up and then come up and grab the, just act it out. So it's kind of nice to see that happening. And then in the end, the idea is adaptation. So it's not, I don't want you to memorize what the okapi is necessarily, but I want you to use it as an example to build up your idea about adaptations, right? All right. What I'm going to do here, I don't know if I have, the other adaptation you could probably see on the resource doc is not adaptation, but the other version of this would be having, and you've seen this before, this is like a story. This is, I would have had you do this in Turkish. And fortunately, some of you probably speak Turkish, so fortunately, we're not going to do it. But I would model it online like this, and then basically it's learning the numbers, and each person has a different sheet with different prices on it. Okay, so you would have to ask, well, how much is the battery? Pil ne kadar, and then the other person would have to answer with the numbers in Turkish. And you've done stuff like this. I'm just showing you kind of a remote adaptation of it. And it's not that hard to do. And then here's some, modifications for kids at more beginning levels, which in the Turkish activity, we'd all be at the beginning level, right? Or most of us. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. I don't think I have any very final, let me see. I don't have any final slide here that I can get to real quickly, but there's some other stuff that'll be on the slide presentation. I'll put some links to the videos. You'll get the slides. Feel free to email me with any questions. And hopefully some of this stuff will be kind of fun, as you get kids to do this more authentic communication with, remember this, what's that? Clarify, and then support, right? So, and this is another one I didn't do, but building up ideas. So building up ideas, using those skills, and really getting excited about using language, because that's kind of what we want kids to do, right? So, and then when we figure out what they need, we fill that in with what types of language they need to become clear and strong. But thank you so much. Share what goes on. Share some successes or questions, that kind of thing. I'm here. I'm at the end of my email. So be great to hear from you all. And I don't know if Monica, you have anything kind of final words?
Well, I just want to thank you so much. Such a great presentation. I love that we were actually able to try something out. So often we don't have the time to actually get into breakout rooms and do it ourselves. So that was fantastic. So on behalf of Nice TESOL, all of our members, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And we'll see you somewhere.
Yes. Hopefully soon. We'll have to have you back. I don't want to, you got cut off a little bit there. There's so much more I'm sure you could say, bring to us today, but we'll have you back really soon. But thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you everyone for making the time this afternoon to stop by. And I will be posting a link to the presentation at nicetesol.org. If you're not currently a member, also go to nicetesol.org to consider becoming a member of the organization. Thank you. Have a great night, everybody.
Okay, bye. Keep up the great work.